The weather's changing, and whether you agree or disagree with what causes it, the reality is it's happening.
You can take actions in your backyard, but they're not going to have a meaningful impact if your neighbors aren't doing the same thing, other states aren't doing the same thing, regions, countries. It really is truly a global problem.
The way we're doing energy today is not the way we're going to do energy tomorrow. There's simply no question about it. We are 20 to 30 years away from remarkable changes in the production of energy in this state, whether we like it or not. So if we're going to take different directions, then what directions work?
What can we do in Minnesota in order to move cities forward faster on energy transition, on being climate smart, on doing things that will enhance the quality of life and reap economic benefits?
We are at an intersection, like many places across the country, where we are really looking at what our challenges and opportunities are, and that actually probably some of the most important change has to happen on the local level.
Climate Smart, Cities Working Together, is a TPT Partnerships co-production of the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota and Twin Cities PBS. Funding for the program has been provided to the University of Minnesota by the Transatlantic Program of the Federal Republic of Germany through the European Recovery Program of the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, with additional support from the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Change is difficult. Change that is fundamental, such as the change to a different energy system, energy as the basis of everything that we do every day, switching on the lights, getting into the car, turning on the gas stove in order to cook.
There's hardly a person on the streets of St. Paul today that know what a ton of carbon looks like, feels like, understands that. So I think we need to change that kind of language. It's just not understandable.
When you say the word climate change, it means different things to different people. I'm not sure there is a universal definition out there that everybody agrees with. But what we can do is focus on what we know.
We have data that goes back over a century showing temperature change with a gradual increase in our nighttime lows. We're also seeing an increase in mega rain events here in Minnesota. Our winter economy is being transformed right before our eyes. We've seen this trend over the last 30 years accelerate. And so when we think about climate change, if we're not mitigating it, we're going to continue to experience these things at the local level.
People have a hard time realizing that, yes, climate change does affect me. It's not just in the icebergs in Antarctica or the coastal region of Florida. It is everywhere.
As a country, we still haven't agreed that climate change is real. We still haven't decided that we want to embrace new technologies fully on a policy format to advance new energy solutions. We're stuck as a nation on that. But I can tell you on the ground level, people get it. We want to have a shared sense of rules and goals and where we're going. We've seen other cities around the world do really impressive, innovative things. We can do that too.
In late 2015, President Obama signed the Paris Accord, which brought together the international community and created pretty aggressive targets for reducing emissions. What wasn't talked about a lot after that was the role of cities. Well, now that the Paris Accord has been abandoned by the United States, there is a real vacuum and an opportunity for state and local jurisdictions to fill that vacuum.
Minnesota is a leader. Minnesota is no longer the leader. Minnesota was a surprising leader in 2007 with the Next Generation Energy Act. But we did not move forward as quickly as other states in the United States have.
We were supposed to have reduced our greenhouse gas emissions 15% by 2015, but as of the most recent reports, we've only reduced our emissions by 4%. So we have a lot of ground to make up here. And this is really something that we see a contrast between how we as a country are approaching this issue and countries such as Germany, which is where we're trying to learn from our peer groups in another country. Germans don't question either the science or the language of climate change. It's not a politically charged word, so it becomes much easier to have a constructive discussion about problem solving.
Germany has made the determination that they will think in decades. If this will pay off in 15 years, we're going to do it. If this is going to pay off in 30 years, we're going to do it. Here, we're still thinking about the 2 to 3 to 5 year payback. And that's okay, because these are steps that we're thinking ahead, but we constrain ourselves as if the long-term thinking doesn't matter as much as the short-term.
An average German home over there uses 3,000 kilowatt hours a year. We use 8,000. So there's a cultural sort of ethic, I think, or at least custom, that they direct their lives towards the use of electricity.
Their energy efficiency measures they take in their homes, either whether it's insulation and doors and windows, is much, much better than we have here in the States. So they really did what I think is the correct way to go about this, and that is focus on energy conservation first, and then look at how to supply what's left in a sustainable manner.
When you look at the German goals and compare them to the Paris goals, you realize that they are very, very similar. Currently, Germany already produces 32% of its electricity through renewable energy.
So the state of Minnesota has a pretty long-standing relationship with the German government and the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And it's been a very productive relationship over the years. We partnered with the University of Minnesota in trying to develop this Climate Smart Cities Exchange that could bring together city leaders, because we saw the benefit at the state level of exchanging policy ideas and bringing them back here to try and build from the economic success that they've had in Germany and really implement it here locally.
In order to focus the project, it needed to be focused on a unit that had everything, that was a microcosm of the world. Cities provide that. Cities have their own governance structure that allow city leadership to create some directions, what I call the people who are aligned along the vertical line of decision making. So we have the state agencies, the legislature, the business sector, the nonprofit sector, academia, and then the cities.
It's really important that all sorts of people with all sorts of different backgrounds come together to try to solve this problem, because it's not necessarily a technical problem anymore. It seems like many of the technical problems have been solved or are on their way of being solved. The thing that is really needed is really more of like a political movement where all sorts of people all coming together and putting together a cohesive solution.
A lot of this initiative is going to come down to being policy decisions in the end. And so those are the folks that need to be educated and informed about what works, what doesn't work, because ultimately they're going to have a hand, I believe, in shaping the future.
And so what's really unique about this project is it pairs large cities and small cities, urban cities, rural cities, in a cohort to not only learn from German counterparts, but to learn from each other.
The project is to figure out not just what could be done, but to actually do something, to implement something that makes sense for that particular community.
In Germany, climate change, climate protection measures, it's a positive thing. It's always subtly in the background.
One community that we visited, Saerbeck, throughout the town, they have displays up where you can see minute by minute how much energy is being produced by windmills and solar panels that are owned by the municipal utility and the communities invested in. So citizens in the community really understand their relationship to this issue, both economically and in broader environmental terms.
The main project we worked out is the transformation of a former ammunition camp of the German army into a, we call it, bioenergy park. All sorts of renewable energies, if you want, beginning from 7 wind turbines up to a PV power park installed on the flanks of the former bunkers, and 2 big biogas plants there. And in total, we are producing there around about 30 megawatts of electric power, which means 250% of the energy need of the whole city of Saerbeck.
So our companion city is Münster. They are a city of about 300,000 people, and they are known to be the bicycle capital of Germany. They have about 600,000 bicycles for a town of 300,000 people. We did everything we needed to do by bike. Bicycles are intermixed with whatever traffic is on the streets. Bicycles have the right of way wherever they go. And it was just a fascinating 3 days to spend on a bike, going everywhere I needed to go, doing everything I needed to do from a bicycle.
We have twice as much bicycles in our city as inhabitants, because every inhabitant has at least 2 bicycles and uses them every day. These are environmental friendly means of transport. We have more than 71% of this.
In Germany, what we find is an integrated system of energy conservation. It could be this huge district energy plant that they have in Münster, large, Rolls-Royce jet engines that propel this thing. They have electric buses then, which are charged off this unit, which travel the streets of Münster, and more will come because I think they're finding it's a useful way of doing downtown bus traffic.
Our sister city, Siegen, is just over 100,000. They are in one of the most green areas of Germany, and they talk about that a lot.
It's a city of ore mining. There have been 600 mines in Siegen. It's now over since 50 years. And now there are a lot of metalworking industry and machine engineering.
The thing that's interesting is that Siegen and Germany, they really started with renewables, and they really started with the source of energy.
Where they are ahead of us in a lot of respects is on energy efficiency. And part of this is driven by the price. They don't really have a choice. The typical German family spends about as much in energy costs as a typical Minnesotan family. But the price of energy for the typical German family is about 2.5 to 3 times higher. So they have gone above and beyond in ensuring that buildings are efficient.
Our partner city in Germany is Arnsberg, and it is 75,000 people, which is made up of 15 boroughs. So Arnsberg was the largest one. They're all in the Ruhr Valley. They run along the Ruhr River. They are surrounded by mountains and forest. They've done a restoration of their river, have tried to get people to come to the river and enjoy it. There was a lot of agriculture. We weren't expecting that, being from an ag area. We just assumed that with as many people live in Germany, that it would just be town after town and people after people.
I would say one of the things that we have learned as a community from this relationship is that a local government can do really big things. What you do on a local level, it matters every single day in the lives of people who are making decisions on how they travel to work, on where they're going to live, on who they're purchasing their goods from, in the daily behavioral choices. That's a local issue. And once people start to understand that it's not a high-end luxury component add-on, it's a way of doing business, tremendous things are possible.
Involve the citizens, involve the people who live around, involve them in the planning process from the very first beginning, and also think about involving them financially. Because when you profit from a wind turbine, for example, as a citizen, you will accept it a lot more.
This was led in the government by the Christian Democratic Party, which is basically the Republican Party of Germany. And so I, as a Republican, and we probably normally wouldn't flow in that direction within this country, but I saw firsthand that it is okay to think in terms of energy conservation and renewables and different ways to do energy. So I think that's the big moments, if you will, for me.
And that's the other piece that I learned when I was in Germany, is they're not only focused on greenhouse gas reductions to minimize impacts of CO2 on the climate, but they're focused on building in additional resiliency into their infrastructure so that when they have these severe weather events, they have less impact on their citizens.
It was really refreshing to see that there is a country that is doing something, and they're doing it now, and they're doing it aggressively. It's makes me hopeful for the future that we can do something like that, that the United States can do it too.
The energy transition is coming. It's already there in Germany. It will be coming to Minnesota, and I firmly believe that the data that we have at the university suggests that those early adopters are going to be winners.
We're beginning to think about it, but the economics, the low price of natural gas right now in the United States makes some of this just fall along the side in terms of being a good, strong economic idea, but we can't burn up the earth forever.
The fact that this is not just an electric generation energy issue when it comes to greenhouse gases. In fact, if I have my numbers correct, I think we just now crossed over a line where transportation now accounts for the largest greenhouse gas emissions in the country, bypassing what used to be the electric generation portfolio.
The role of economics is critical. Quite frankly, we can't sustain the kinds of changes that we need to our energy mix and our broader economy if they're not economical. And what we've seen in Minnesota has been pretty remarkable. We have over 15,000 jobs in the clean energy sector, and the wages in these fields are significantly higher than average wages statewide. In 20 years, I really believe that much of our economy, as much as possible, will be electrified. What I mean by that is the price of electric vehicles, solar panels, the prices are coming down so quickly that the market is really driving a transformation of these systems. And I think what we're going to see is a move to electrify as much as we can to really reduce the greenhouse gas intensity of our overall economy.
So Duluth is a city of 86,000 people. We live on a beautiful Lake Superior, which is a major focus for our city. We're also along the St. Louis River. We have 42 creeks that run through our city. There are a lot of reasons why we talk about energy conservation and why we talk about stewardship and why we talk about renewables. This year alone, we will decrease our greenhouse gas 15%. We have a coal-fired steam plant in our downtown. It's been there for 100 years. It will be there for quite a bit more. It heats our entire downtown system. It provides heat to some of our hospitals and to our Canal Park district. It's a really important district heating system. We have made the choice to transform out of coal and into natural gas for 7 or 8 months of the year. That's a new experiment that we're trying. So that is really substantial. That is big savings. Later this year, we anticipate plugging into the solar community garden through Minnesota Power, which will provide us with literally millions of dollars of savings over a long-term contract. But the most important part about that to me is that with us as a leading tenant, we now get to help bring prices down for everybody. And so again, that value of democratizing and ensuring that solar and renewables are systems for everybody. And so we are no longer just kind of talking about what we think we want to do. We are off, we are running, we have a very ambitious plan. We are constantly working on it, we are constantly achieving on it. It's because we have really talented people who know way more about energy than I do. And my job is in part to provide the framework and support and opportunity, and then get out of the way so they can get their job done.
The city of Rochester is about 110,000 people. We are the third largest city in Minnesota, and we are on the beginning stages of some tremendous growth opportunities in Rochester. We have a very large medical center, the Mayo Clinic, that really dominates the city in terms of employment. We have about 3 million visitors a year that come into the city, mostly for medical treatment and medical visits. And we have the DMC, Destination Medical Center initiative, that began about a year ago or so. And that is slated to provide additional 50,000 jobs over the next 20 to 25 years. So we are looking at some substantial growth opportunities for the city. And we are building a brand new, high-efficient natural gas-powered peaking plant, which has a fourth less the carbon per kilowatt-hour output than our coal plant had. And we have a very aggressive Conserve and Save program where we rebate our customers for buying energy efficient appliances. In fact, we have saved annually over 22 million kilowatt hours just from the use of that Conserve and Save program. So going forward, We have what we call an infrastructure plan. It's a 25-year look at what the future loads look like and what the future resources to supply those loads look like. And we've made commitments to install significant amounts of solar and wind as part of that infrastructure plan. So all of the energy that we supply beyond our contract with our wholesale power supplier comes from renewable sources. So right now today, Rochester is about 20% renewable. So we're on that path to future sustainability.
The city of Warren is in the northwestern corner of the state of Minnesota, predominantly an ag community, 1,600 people. It's in the Red River Valley, so very fertile soils. One of the first things that we did is we have been changing all of our indoor lighting in city-owned buildings to LED. And we also do, anytime we have a street reconstruction project, we install all new LED streetlights. We actually have a very exciting project. We decided that in Warren and in Arnsberg, we would do drone scans using infrared imaging, thermal imaging, on all of our residents in our community. And then that allows the residents to come in, look at their scans, see where they need to do energy upgrades for, greater energy savings, greater cost savings. So that would have never, ever come about if we did not have the partnership with Germany. We're excited in Warren because the residents have a direct benefit then from the Smart Cities Climate Program.
The role of the state now is being transformed a little bit, given the direction at the federal level. In the absence of a clean power plan to administer, the state is really trying to cultivate local leadership and support local leadership on this issue. So for instance, we have a program at the state called Green Step Cities, which is providing technical support and recognition to cities that are willing to take a number of action steps on sustainability and climate change mitigation. There are about 110 cities in this program, but one of the really unique things about the Green Step Cities program is it's not just for left-leaning liberal cities. Probably about 25% of the cities that are enrolled in it you would consider conservative communities based on their voting habits. And Climate Smart Municipalities is part of that effort. It's really taking that to yet another level where we're trying to make more meaningful partnerships to really explore what are we not thinking about here? What can be done? What are other countries doing, other communities doing that we can try to deploy here in Minnesota to really accelerate the results that we're getting into?
There's going to be a transition period. Where the future goes will depend a little bit on technology and storage technology. That's one of the things that I also was impressed with when Germany is they're starting to look at how do they store their excess wind energy in another form of energy, whether it's thermal energy or batteries or some other technology. So I think it's going to take some time and it's going to take some research to get over all of the hurdles, but I think it's doable.
Since I've been to Germany, I've had an internship with the Department of Commerce in the Energy Division. I've started working at a lab at the University of Minnesota. I've really started to gain a lot of interest in the technical side of trying to store energy with compressed air, the energy coming off of a wind turbine, for example. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of new ways that we can just store excess renewable energy, because that'll be very important into the future. When we're going to have a lot of renewable energy in the grid, we will need somewhere to put the excess energy.
The partnership of all 10 cities has been extremely valuable. Even just with us 5 Minnesota cities, we probably never would have crossed paths. We wouldn't have had conversations with Rochester or Duluth. Those are large cities. And in those conversations, we find that it doesn't matter what size you are, you have some of the same challenges. And it is nice to just be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Senator, when we were in Germany, we saw this. What do you think for some legislation? What do you think we can do to help this cause?
It's not what you do to people, it's what you do for people that really matters. And I think in this case, the best thing the state government might do in many cases is let our cities work. They are the laboratories of democracy. And it's much more refreshing if, in fact, it happens there with their energy, their ideas. It's not directed by state government. and they make it happen. Then it's theirs. They own it, and they can be proud of it. And pride is a wonderful thing. Pride will fuel energy for a long time if it's built.
For us, our energy efforts as it relates to this exchange with Germany is looking systematically at what are we as a city, corporate city, doing. But it's also about helping to influence and change behaviors in our community. And it's also about diversifying an economy to be inclusive of renewables and new research and new ideas and new manufacturing solutions to sustain greater energy independence.
I'm very hopeful that project partners, the cities, the state leaders, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and the university can really show that Minnesota is a leader and that our cities can show the way for us to live together, work collaboratively, and do so in a way that is beneficial to all of us and to the environment as well.
Climate Smart, Cities Working Together is a TPT Partnerships co-production of the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota and Twin Cities PBS. Funding for the program has been provided to the University of Minnesota by the Transatlantic Program of the Federal Republic of Germany through the European Recovery Program of the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, with additional support from the Minnesota Department of Commerce.